Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back after a wonderful lunch break. Today, I, Sachin Yadav,
And I, Rupali Chaudhary.
are here to take forward the third panel discussion, the title of which is What's in Tech for HR?
The discussion will be focused on how is immersive technology disrupting the HR function. How can HR leverage machine learning, digital and data intelligence for various HR processes? And in the last, from people science to data science, what are the challenges in the robotized world?
The moderator for the discussion is Dr. Rajesh Save, co-founder in Packer Consulting LLP. The experts in the panel are Mr. Rohit Kumar, Senior Vice President, Advantage Club, Ms. Sangeeta Malkhede, Global HR Head, GS Lab, GABS Technologies, Mr. Souvik Chaudhary, Workday Practice Leader, IBM Consulting, and Ms. Susain Kutina, Group Head Careers and Development, Evident.
Now, before the discussion begins, let me take this opportunity to invite the experts on the stage and form the dais as I introduce them. Let's welcome them with a huge round of applause. Dr. Rajesh Save is the co-founder of Empecker Consulting LLP. He brings with him 3 decades of experience in human resources, consulting, and AI product development. He has been global head of HR for transnational corporations. Having done his PhD in psychometrics from the University of Mumbai, Dr. Save specializes in analytics, machine learning, digital HRM, and the human side of technology.
Mr. Rohit Kumar is the Senior Vice President at Advantage Club. With a strong background in HR technology and fintech, he has been a driving force in the startup ecosystem. An alumni of National Insurance Academy Pune, his experience is employee engagement and well-being, coupled with his experience at renowned organizations, makes him a leading figure in HR and employee benefits.
Ms. Sangeeta Malkhede is the global HR head at GAVS Technology. Prior to this, she held leadership roles at various organizations of repute, where she drove people programs on high-performance culture, employee engagement, leadership development, and other areas of HR. A firm believer that the people are the key to build a successful organization, she strives to create strategic HR initiatives that align with business vision and goals.
Mr. Souvik Chaudhary, a seasoned HR transformation leader with over 2 decades of experience, has a proven track record of transforming and supporting HR functions across multiple clients around the world. Currently, he is the leader of Workday Consulting Practice at IBM in India, Philippines, Romania, China, and Baton Rouge.
Ms. Susain Kutina is the Group Head, Careers and Development at Evident and Atos Business. She has over 2 decades of experience in the field of people development, specializing in learning and capability development, and is a postgraduate in computer applications. Having completed her executive education from IIM Bangalore and HEC Paris, she is also a master practitioner of neuro-linguistic programming. Please give them a huge round of applause.
With these brief introductions, I now request my colleagues to formally welcome the speakers and present the planters.
Please take your seat. Thank you.
Now I request the speakers to please take your seat.
Now, I will request the moderator to take the discussion forward and request the audience to be ready with their questions for the Q&A session at the end of this discussion. Please, sir.
Well, thank you so much, and well, such a comprehensive introduction. I'm already feeling elated with the kind of introduction that you guys gave, and thank you so much for all this. Well, I think this panel discussion is going to be a little unique for the simple reason is I believe the non-HR guys on the dais are in majority. So that adds a lot of spice to the entire tech discussions. Why am I saying that is possibly you will have a very different perspective coming from non-HR guys, and that matters quite a bit considering it's a tech discussion. So, there is this very famous American footballer, baseballer called Yogi Berra. One very profound thing that he said once upon a time was, the future ain't what it used to be. I repeat, the future ain't what it used to be. Very significant for the tech transformation happening in human resources as well as everywhere else. The reason is that we had reasonably predictable future all these years, and most of the times we have been repeating what we were. In fact, when I started my career way back in early 90s, the first 5 years were basically possibly a photocopy of the previous year. That every year we had a diary and we would look at the diary that, okay, fine, falana date, we have to go to campus and then start and all that kind of things. Things have become so unpredictable now that forget the year, but even the month can't be repeated. So much of tech transformation is happening. With the advent of cloud, social media way back in 2007, processing power, okay, it's gone up exponentially. And of course, the smartphones in hand of everyone has changed it radically. And then of course, why HR should, be behind in that. And that's where I think the tech importance in HR is very important. Needless to say that the importance of human resources functionaries learning tech is as important as well. And that's where I think today's panel is going to be very important, because these guys are going to be talking about what exactly is happening, okay? So let's start with, workplace and workforce, because the entire human resources function is lying on these three sutris, right? And most of the impact which has happened on these three. So to start with, just I'll request, Sangeeta to start off with, that with so much of tech intervention, with the technologies hovering all over the place, what do you think, what is the impact, and I would request you to be a little generic as possible, but impact on the workforce, and workplace? Of course, we had this discussion about future of work in the morning, but in line with that, what are your thoughts on this?
Sure. So very good afternoon. I know a session is post-lunch, but hope this entire panel is going to keep you really awake. We would like your participation as much as, we do not want this day. This day is special for all of us. And thank you so much, NIA, for inviting us to this very special topic of, creating the workforce of tomorrow, and especially the tech within that. Thanks, Rajesh, for, actually defining the way the future of work is going to be. And it has these three very linked topics, which is work, workplace, and workforce. Work definitely is likely to be changing very, very rapidly, especially for HR and for every individual in every industry. Post-pandemic, we all have seen a huge shift in how technology is, rapidly taking over every industry, because more the workplace has got shifted completely to the remote and to the hybrid mode. The work in itself is actually going through a paradigm shift with AI and ML and generative AI actually taking over our lives even more. What's happening within HR, I can tell you the analytics, the predictability, and the diagnostic that AI and ML is throwing in every field. The work itself is going through a change. The way we used to do recruitment, the way we used to do performance management, and overall retention, each one of this field has become so predictable, and we'll talk about that as the session progresses, that it is actually it is completely changing for HR, which is my mainstream career over last close to 3 decades now. It definitely is going through a rampant change, and that's true for every industry and insurance. I'm sure in the close corners, we will hear more from Rohit around the AI ML impacting also this industry. So definitely workforce, I think the millennials are completely a new generation. As you rightly said, Rajesh, when we started in the early 90s, it was more following the manager, following the boss, and going with that as our philosophies. And we role modeled, we role modeled people who were in the organization, in the system. The needs and asks of the individuals in the industry were very different. IT was booming rapidly, and we were part of the IT world. Most of us, Susan, Rajesh, and of course, Suvik and me. I think all of us have seen IT boom, and with that, careers boom as well. But it was more role modeling. It was more staying in the organization, making your career for at least 10 to 15 years, and people grew. But I think times are changing with millennials. It is me first over the work first. And I think we will talk. So these are the three shifts that I see very clearly, Rajesh, with workplace, as well as workforce, all of that going through a massive change, and which is good. I think change is always good. So we are ready to embrace that, but I think let's talk more in that space.
Sure. Thanks, Sangeeta, for that, comprehensive insight. You spoke about, hybrid working, right? So, you know what? I'm just kind of shifting gears a little differently, considering the hybrid working. The Coke CEO was asked that, who is your biggest competitor? And the Coke CEO says that it's the water. Expected answer was Pepsi. But what he said is water, right? The Netflix CEO was asked, who is your biggest competitor? And guess what Netflix CEO says? Sleep. Okay? So, these are the disruptive answers that you got, okay? Yeah. So we have this, guy called Brian Kinsley, the CEO of Airbnb. So when hybrid working came in, so all of us have kind of, been recruited at some point in time. We would recruit people basis, of course, skill sets and all that kind of stuff, but location used to be a very big and important factor all these years. You may get fabulous guys. For example, Bangalore, okay, let me give you a brass tacks example. Bangalore is kind of, tech El Dorado. And that's where you get best of the IT guys, but very expensive IT guys. Okay. So when hybrid working, rather post-COVID, in fact, okay, in the lighter vein, you have BC and AD, right? And when we say 2000, right? So you have post-COVID and pre-COVID now. So in the pre-COVID era, we had this location constraint. Yeah. In the post-COVID, Kinsley immediately picked up the clue saying that, look here guys, Airbnb is going to be housing huge number of guys when it comes to remote working. And that's an opportunity, just like with the way Coke and Netflix and a lot of others have thought about it. So in terms of hybrid working, and that's going to be, there's a lot of mix. I keep on chatting with all my fellow HR professionals. And there's a huge, or the mixed reactions in terms of what's happening on hybrid and remote working. Where exactly are we heading to? First of all, a lot of people don't like the word hybrid. They say call it remote working. Okay. Now, I would like to ask Rohit, because Rohit, you've been kind of, involved with the entire, and you have a platform as well in terms of how you offer. So, what's your take, how exactly things are happening now, and where do you see future? Because as Yogi Berra said, the future ain't what it used to be, right? So one doesn't know what the future is. But where are we heading? What is the current state of the union in terms of hybrid working, and what's your, of course, I'm not going to ask you a strategy, but where are you, heading towards? That's what.
Sure. First of all, thank you, Rajesh, being moderating and giving us a little heads up before we assembled on the dais. And thank you, NIA, for conducting such a fabulous seminar year after year after year. So all the credit goes to the student, the faculty, and the director, sir. To give you a perspective how from a normal work before COVID, and as Rajesh rightly mentioned, it is BC and AD which has come in, pre-COVID and post-COVID. I'll just give a Gallup's research number, which clearly says pre-COVID, almost 60% of employees used to work from work site. Post-COVID, it is exactly reversed. So now the dominating number is hybrid or remote, you can say. If you say pre and post, two worlds has kind of merging into one place. Now when I say two worlds, because earlier it was large corporations, everybody's working at location, and that's how the world used to be built upon. it has changed drastically. There are startups coming in, which was there earlier in US, which has taken up India, which is where the whole change is happening and where whole Gen Z are the biggest resource there. Now they work 24/7. They are so passionate about it. Now there has to be a balance because they work 24/7, then they will burn out. And hence the balance of hybrid is the future, by and large, because that's what at present is visible with the numbers, with the research and everything. Now, what has also happened with hybrid as a workplace, it has opened up a marketplace of resource. When I say marketplace of resource, earlier, as Sangeeta was mentioning or Dr. Rajesh was mentioning, that there was a hub called Bangalore, there was a hub called Delhi, Mumbai was the biggest hub by and large, and Pune and some areas. Here are the corporates, here you will get a work. If you have to get a better job profile, anything, you have to move out from these places. And that was the world we were living in. Today, it is no more that world. With hybrid, somebody is working from Assam, corner of the places. Somebody is sitting in Bhutan and delivering the productivity which was expected from that person. Now, this has given a whole democratization of an resource, which is a human resource, which was not there before. So now that is one thing which has happened. Post that, what has also brought in with the hybrid workforce, what we envisage and see today, two kind of world has shifted. One, work-life balance was big debate pre-COVID. Now, people have shifted, remigrated to their local places, living their life, putting their efforts, and enjoying their life. So they're enjoying actually life, which is called work-life balance, so-called, which is so fabricated from US. India mein work-life balance shuru se hai. So, and second is, if you have observed, female workforce has started coming back on the fore. People were moving out from pressure jobs because you have to manage home. India still not matured enough to say that, okay, I will have 50-50 share of workspace. So female workforce has now got an opportunity to work from home, deliver what is expected, and whenever they wanted to be a little relaxed, they can come to office and work there, connect with friends. So that space has opened up. And these are the two positives from hybrid which we are observing, and we are trying to cater from our solutions to engage these hybrid workflows. Because the time you change from on-office, on-site to hybrid, and you are in a midway, then how do you engage with these last mile resources, which are no more a full-time employee? Let me be very clear now that the world is moving from gig work, which is I will do 5 works in a day, and that's what the world is. I will not do full-time with an organization. So our dad's era, or by and large, I'll say being a millennial, my era was of that shape. With the Gen Z coming in with you guys, I think it is like I will work for 3 companies in those 8 hours, and I will be a value producer than be an employee. That's my view.
Well, I think the last statement that you said, Rohit, I was just kind of thinking about it, because moonlighting has been around for the last few months, ever since, there's one significant event happened with a very big IT services firm. And possibly you're legitimizing and legalizing moonlighting by, hybrid working. Maybe future, because, and that will call for a massive restructuring of labor codes and stuff like that. So it's like very important perspective. What my call from hybrid working, Rohit, is I think we possibly have changed the front end without even touching the back end. And there's a huge comprehensive change which has happened on front end, which requires too much of liver adjusting of the back end. I think that's really important. But having said this, another back end side, which is a softer back end side, is the entire training and development function. So I remember when I started working my career over 3 decades ago, we had a huge training and development infrastructure. There used to be training rooms, training halls. In fact, I remember TCS used to have, I think, 58 days or 60 days training program in Trivandrum. They're one of the biggest training facilities. It's a fabulous place. Infosys built something similar in Mysore, yeah. and so on and so forth. With, I think, this one paradigm shift, okay, which is a huge disruptor of hybrid working. I think possibly all that investment, I'm not sure. I'm speculating, but maybe that investment is in question, and one doesn't know where to go and how to go about it. But on this backdrop, how do we reskill? Because on one hand, you have the huge challenge of technology getting out of the shelves very fast. The shelf life of technology is reducing, which means the rate at which you should upskill, reskill people has to be very high and through innovative and different methods. Okay, so Susan on the panel is one of the doyens in this particular space where training and development is happening. So Susan, how are you guys taking care of this? Because one hand you have hybrid or remote working, where possibly somebody sitting in Timbuktu would be your employee and would be taking care of whatever delivery is. But at the same time, you need to upskill, reskill, retool. There are several synonyms which are used. So how do you, a couple of questions. One is, how do you take care of this challenge? And second is, to kill the technology, we need a technology, right? So how are you using technology to take care of this kind of challenges?
Hello. Yeah. Okay, when Rajesh asked this question, I remembered, I think good old days of college when we used to go there. Beyond the classroom, we would go to a library, and we thought that, the biggest, fattest book in my hand would make me look more knowledgeable, make me look like a person who is interested in learning. And I don't know if it still happens, but in our good old days, when coming back home, it felt nice to carry this big book in the hand and say, I learn, I read, and things like that. And with years, I think we saw a lot of e-learning coming in terms of classroom sessions and then getting experts, converting it into e-learning. And then we brought in a concept of blended learning, where we said you can learn a little bit and then you have an instructor who will come in. And in today's day and time, and I think Rajesh said something, when you have hybrid working, how do you take care of it? I think it's also about the kind of workforce that we have today, right? While I know that, okay, this is the kind of skill that needs to be done, it's also important for a person to be able to assess, where am I right now? What's my skill? What are the kind of skills that my role requires me to do? So if I'm a project manager, it's just not about project management that I need to know, which is for sure, but I also need to know, how do I do cost management? How do I do stakeholder management? How do I do risk management when I'm running a project? And what we have realized is, there is a beautiful concept called as learning experience that we'd like to create for people. And Rajesh rightly said that, okay, you need technology to kill a technology. So while we have had a good number of years, and even we continue right now having learning management systems, I think today is a day and time where the experience of learning is far more important than just the tool or the topic that I will learn. And I'm sure all of you all in this room, if there is an assignment that's given to you in the college, the first thing that you will do is not go to the library, but check up on Google, okay? Or if you're a little more modern, you may go to ChatGPT and say, hey, what is it that I need to do for this particular thing? And that's how times have evolved. So I call that a concept of social learning. I have learning, which is there, but that learning could come from any source. And that's what learning experience platforms today are able to provide to us. When I log in out there, the first thing it asks is, what do you do? And I could say, I'm a project manager. Then it says, okay, what are the 3 skills that are required for you at your work to make you successful? And I say, okay, these are 3 skills. And it tells me, can you tell me how good are you at these skills? And depending on my answers, it will provide learning from across sources. And that's the best part of having an experience platform. And to top it up, it will say, okay, Susan, you are a project manager. What would you like to do? And let's say I'd like to become an HR professional. Okay, what would you like to do in that? I'd like to know compensation and benefits. And lo and behold, it will say, okay, if you want to do compensation and benefits, these are certain skills that you need to do. Can you like to prioritize what you like to learn first? Along with that, what the learning experience today provides is, because there are so many people who are on the platform and who are learning, and like me have said, I'm good at project management or I'm good at learning and development, I think what platforms today help to do is to bring people and expertise closer together. So all I need to do is to say, I'd like to do compensation and benefits, and then the platform basically is going to ask me, you'd like to do compensation? Great. Why don't you get in touch with Sangeeta? She's already an expert at it. You can learn from her, you can connect with her, you can follow her to see what else is she learning that you may also need to learn. And I think today that is the power of technology. That is the power of the intelligence that the platforms are able to provide. You know, not only in terms of getting learning together, but getting also patterns of learning from people with similar profiles and help individuals to be able to be more successful. So Rajesh, specifically to your question, I think from an upskilling perspective, I think it's about not knowing what's the need of today, but to be able to look at the need of the future, and also to be able to use a lot of modeling that can be done. Okay, this is something that people in the kind of profile that you are in are learning. These are certain topics that we find experts are doing across the world, and bringing the power of people, platform, and learning together. That's how I see it.
Wow, excellent. In fact, Susan, you have triggered a very important thought in me, which is precursor to upskilling and reskilling and retooling. And just case in point, couple of examples. The jobs are getting killed because of AI. That's what people are saying. So I have a corollary. We all know the Newton's law of conservation of energy, right? So I have a corollary to that, which basically says that this law of conservation of jobs. And in the line of conservation of energy, we can say that jobs are never created nor destroyed, they just change forms. Now, why am I saying that? I'll just give you a small example, and in line with what you, Susan, you just said, is take for example, a job of something called Jimmy Jeep operator in entertainment industry. Now, the job doesn't exist anymore, by the way, the job is killed. But the Jimmy Jeep operator used to be, you remember good old days when you used to have some live Saregama on TV and there used to be a camera which is on the Jimmy Jeep, and the operator would be working on joysticks, and the Jimmy Jeep would go close to the performer and then come back and stuff like that, right? These are the guys who are the highest paid operators in the entertainment industry 10 years ago. One disruption called drone, and the job is gone, okay? Because now drones are doing it and you don't need Jimmy Jeeps, so you don't need the operators. So the job which was giving you yesterday lakhs of rupees is today not needed. Upskilling, and this is happening, just one example, HR, since the seminar is about HR, sourcing, CV sourcing was very important. Because you give us specs and the guy who is working in sourcing would basically go to the portals and kind of download the CVs or whatever. Today, natural language processing, NLP and text mining, it does in no time. So the manual sourcing would take possibly, to source 5 CVs or 10 CVs take an hour. It happens in seconds, nanoseconds, okay? Now over there, the reskilling and retooling is required because again, job has changed the form. So from that perspective is very important. I think if you look at the disruption, and the most important disruption which has happened in this decade thus far is, people call it ChatGPT, but it's basically generative AI. And it is expected that generative AI is going to create a lot of more disruptions, though till today, what I'm hearing is more of a cosmetic output of ChatGPT. I think correct me if I'm wrong, Souvik, I'm coming to you after this, and 90% of us are using ChatGPT as Google. Okay, and we are yet to kind of get into a prompt engineering and whatever. But since Souvik, you are in that space and you're very active, and I again refuse to call it ChatGPT because there are 40 others, who are similar type and might be better. But it's like, every tooth cleaner is called Colgate, right? Not a toothpaste. ChatGPT has become a synonym for everything. So Souvik, what do you think? Is it flavor of the day? Is it tune of the year or whatever? Or is going to kind of create, I wouldn't say havoc, but disruption? And what's your take on it? Because you're in that area. And you're very passionate about, generative AI.
So, Rajesh, thank you for that question. I know it's a short question, but I'm going to give a long answer.
most welcome. People are looking forward to that.
All right. So tell me something. What did Facebook achieve in 10 months? Twitter in 2 years? And ChatGPT in 5 days. What is it that ChatGPT achieved? What is common? I was checking if everyone's awake. Thank you. No,
It came from there as well.
So thank you. All right. So jokes apart. So look, yes, I have been spending quite a bit of time on generative AI. So what I'll do is I'll take a few minutes to unpack ChatGPT, generative AI, foundation model, large language models, right? Let me take a couple of minutes maybe. See, artificial intelligence has been in the works for many, many decades, right? So it started with advanced analytics. So when I was doing my software stuff in an insurance domain, there was this unique news one fine morning. You know what? In Kenya, red cars are being loaded on the premiums. I'm like, I was a software engineer. My stuff was to develop. I'm like, why would anyone do that? So when I scratched the surface, it was because there was a lot of theft on red cars, and this is 2001, okay? And it really intrigued me a little bit, but then I moved on. So that is probably an example of advanced analytics that gave insights. And I'm sure in the last 20 years, many, many things have changed, but I'm telling based on my experience from back in the day. And then came machine learning, then came deep learning. So machine learning was all about supervised learning, right? You all must have gone into websites, asked a question, saw an answer, and hit on a thumbs up button. So that's supervised learning. And then came unsupervised learning or deep learning. But then there came a plethora of fit for purpose stuff. So you'll have something that's helping you sell, something that's helping your travel policies in HR, another bot that's doing something else. So that was the natural outcome. And then came a large model, which is what we call the foundation model. And the thought process is that one model should be able to do multiple tasks. They should be able to understand what you are asking, the context, and get back with minimal human intervention. So that's unstructured learning. Now, ChatGPT is part of this foundation model or large language model, which is also called a generative technology, okay? So when we talk about generation, when we talk about ChatGPT, we say, wow, it gave me such a nice essay when I knew nothing about it, right? So that's one aspect of generation. If you move forward, there are other aspects. Summarization is also an aspect of generation. Classification is also an aspect of generation. Now, what I urge you today is, I understand it's an HR conversation, but think of what summarization can do to your claims settlement, right? The possibilities are huge. What I will do now is bring us back into HR a little bit. In HR, if you look at the possibilities of generative, think of a manager. In India, on an average, the span of control that a manager has is between 8 to 15. I have seen managers with 20, 22 employees. We work in projectized organization, most of us, right? We are very, very, we have to get this job done, move on, do the second project, whatever. So in the course of, let's say, 6 months, especially with Gen Zs and the kind of work that Gen Zs are attracting, you end up working with, on an average, 3 people in 6 months' time. In 6 months' time, when a manager says, let me see how you have done, you will get back 6 feedbacks. Multiply that with an average of 12. What will your manager do at that point? I mean, does he or she have time to really sit down and read and do justice to it? One of the use cases that we just finished doing is we are using a foundation model to extract each of those feedback and then summarize the gist of it and passing it back to the manager, right? And the manager then gets something that helps her or him to have a starting point through which they can really do justice to all of the work that's come through, all of the feedback that has come through. We talked about jobs being redundant of recruiters. And there is a brilliant use case for, with Gen AI in this space, which again, we just finished. I'm coming off of a few days of hackathon with a team of about 450 people. So one of the use cases was a candidate applies, recruiter, schedules an interview, but then during scheduling the interview, Gen AI is being used to look at all the bios, match it back with the job description, and feed back to the interviewer the highlights of why this candidate is good for this job. And it's also sending an email back to the candidate saying why this company and this job is a great fit for you. Think of how much time it would take for a recruiter to do just that activity, right? Okay. Now, when I know, every technology has its maturity curve. In the recent past, we have seen lawsuits. We have seen, ChatGPT being used in ways, or ChatGPT even producing outcomes which were absolutely fictitious, right? Yes, these are downsides. And that is where trust and ethics will become central to the technologies, especially of generative. And then don't get me wrong, while generative is not only about generation, it's about summarization, question and answer, et cetera, it is also not only about texts. It can generate audio, it can generate video. Think of, all of the possibilities and the applications of that, but only if it's being used ethically. And there are 5 top principles which I wanted to write down because I didn't want to misquote myself, right? So transparency. If you are getting a content summarized, generated, etc., it has to be done transparently. It cannot be a black box. Today we don't know what ChatGPT is, where it is getting it from, right? Explainability. We should be able to track back what we are getting and be able to explain the content. Transparency and privacy, right? So these are pillars that, it will be an evolution. It will be an evolution of generative AI as we move forward, and AI in general. But if these ethical pillars are being adhered to as the market matures, the inevitable result is going to be augmented human beings. Generative AI is not about taking away jobs. It is, or AI for that matter, it is for us to be better at it. And if I look at it from a global context, productivity increase has been decreasing for the last 20 years. Productivity increase has been decreasing.
Well said.
And the global workforce in all major economies except India is all poised to shrink by up to 20% in the next 20 years.
Productive workforce, yeah.
The productive workforce. So, without something that really makes human beings better than what they are today, more productive, more better, more efficient, we will not be making progress. So it is on all of us to make it happen. That's all. Thank you.
Fantastic. I think ethical side of AI is something which really matters a lot. In fact, quickly now that you spoke about that, there's one use case that I would like to mention here of Gen AI. And this deals with talent acquisition and, in fact, profitable talent acquisition. So I'll quickly tell you, by using, of course, large language model, you spoke about LLM. But when you go for talent acquisition, you have to basically recruit the best possible talent at the least possible cost. Okay, that's the mantra. So if you're using Gen AI, what happens is you, as I've earlier said, you use NLP and text mining and download CVs, okay? But the kind of people, the talent that you're looking for is expensive. So it gives you a percentage fit in terms of what you want. And obviously, needless to say, those resources which are fitting 95% and 90% would be expensive. So Gen AI would tell you that, look here, these are expensive resources. These are 65%, 70% are not so expensive resources. However, I'll get Susan's point in over here, that if these guys do this many courses in Udemy, Udacity, or whatever, they will come up to 95%, and today you are getting them at cheaper costs. So get them, upskill them, and recruit them. Or rather, recruit them and upskill them so that you will have cheaper resources at, quality resources at cheaper rates. So I think this is something which is very important from Gen AI, which is coming in, which is culmination of several technologies together. So of course, that is very important. Okay. By the way, we spoke about AI and ML. This is for all of you. What do you think? How old are these terms, AI and ML? Anybody can answer this? I'll give you a clue. Steven Spielberg made a movie called AI in 2002. So it's definitely about 20 years old. Anybody can tell me how old is this term, AI? Anyone? Wild guess? 70 years old. Pretty close. It's his company, IBM. Both these names were coined around 1957, 1956. Machine learning as well as artificial intelligence. And since then, everybody is thinking that yes, now it's going to be happening, but all of a sudden the winter comes in. Then again it hots up and all of a sudden the winter comes in. But I think now there is no winter. It's going to be all the way, chat GPT or generative AI or whatever. But, we've been kind of using it for maybe an individual or more of a personalized level. But, what happens, we spoke about disruption, and now the disrupted things are getting disrupted. What I mean is the entire space of bots is getting disrupted because of Gen AI. Okay, so Susan, you've been using, as a possibly maybe a POC or whatever. I hear that. How are you using Gen AI or other Chat GPT as a intelligent chatbots? Because that is major disruption happening over there, right? So would you please share your experience of using Chat GPT or Gen AI for the bots?
And I'm going to take a cue from what Souvik said just now, right? It's about how do you make work better? How do you make it more effective, efficient? I'm sure all of us have used a chatbot, right? So if you go into any kind of website, it will say, okay, I'm here to help you. Do you need any particular help? And then I'm able to go and ask whatever question that I'd like to do. Now, typically, it would have required us to sit down and put in a knowledge repository to say, okay, these are the kind of questions that can come, these are the kind of answers that you can give. And to add to that, what we also had is, we had any kind of a ticketing mechanism. In case my query is not resolved, I can raise a ticket in a service desk, and then I will have somebody respond to it, or it could be a bot itself responding back to me. When we saw this entire concept of generative AI coming in, what we decided we will do is we will take all of the tickets that get generated for our performance management related queries. Everything raised across countries. I'm not able to access my form, this is not working, I need to change my manager, whatever it is. We try to take all of those questions, and we used generative AI Now, what is the power of that is you don't need to train. It automatically is able to read, learn from the kind of questions that are raised, the tickets that are raised, the kind of conversations that are there, and it helps you to formulate those same answers. And what's the impact? The biggest impact is time. What I had to sit and formulate as questions and responses earlier on is automatically there. And the more I'm going to ask questions into the generative AI-based portal that we have created, I'm going to be able to train things much, much better. We did the same exercise, what we called as a developer assistance program. We took some of the best practices and the best code snippets that are created, and we created and put that into a repository so that if anybody wanted to find out, okay, this is the kind of solution that I need to build, is there some best case situation that we already have internally made available? We created what is called as a developer assistance program for our associates. And I think that is the power of generative AI. Not that it's not been there before, but it's about how do you keep disrupting what you've already done before and make it work better, provide faster, and obviously, as I think Shobik and also Rajesh spoke about, how do you get it to be responsible and ethical as well? And that's where much of the effort today is actually going in. But very nascent stages for us internally as we try this as proof of concepts, but I think there's a lot of power, and it's just going to benefit the way we operate and the way we deliver.
Oh, great, great. There's one issue that all of us face with bots too often, whether it's Amazon or any of the vendors I'm talking about, or even chatbots which are used for HR, that sometimes you get sick with them. Because you get Microsoft, in fact, the one of the best companies. So you need somewhere a human being to respond, okay? And if you need a human being to respond in an organization, you need more of an engaged human beings. So that's where engagement is very important, and employee engagement matters a lot. In fact, we were just chatting about, and this is very important and interesting, guys, where the world is going. How do you measure customer or employee engagement? And most of the times we think of those forms, right? A Google form. And how do you rate this product and all that kind of stuff, okay? Now, what is happening now is, your pictures are taken. So as you're moving in supermarket, your pictures are taken, and the expressions that you have on your face talks loads about your engagement levels, your happiness levels. Okay, and similar things are being done for even employee as well. If you want to measure employee engagement, just take the picture of the employee in the morning and in the evening while going home, and compare the two. And this is happening, guys. I mean, we have a proof of concept. So I'm not talking about future. It's here and now, today. Only thing is it is not commoditized to that extent, okay? So till the time we are definitely focusing on engagement platforms and engaging employees. So I mean, that's basically assessment. But how do you keep employee engaged? That is very important in this entire tech drama which is going on and which is increasingly, going to be there all over the place. So Rohit, apparently you have a great experience with this kind of stuff, right? Wherein how to keep employee, but ultimately that is what it matters, right? True. Eventually, and it's like, I'll just give you one quote and then hand it over to you. One of my favorite CEOs, of Southwest Airlines, okay? He says, I don't care for, and very controversial statement he made, okay? He said that I don't care for customers. I mean, look here, the man who is leading a company which is not made, which is out of 50 years of existence, 47 years of profit. That too in airline business, which is within margin business. Right? The guy says, I don't care for my customers. I care for my employees, and my employees care for the customers. And that's why employee engagement is extremely important. Herb Kelleher, right? Legendary CEO of, in fact, used to say, I'm a chief DJ. And you imagine a CEO dancing on the dance floor with the employees and stuff like that, right? Cared so much of employee engagement. True. So what's your take on in the entire tech stuff which is going on? How are you managing it? I mean, as a provider.
True. Thanks, Rajesh. So if you look at today, again, I'll start with how a research gives a feedback because that's a real touch points when you do a research. So Gallup gives 23% of an employee today are engaged. That's what the worldwide number. Maybe a little more in few countries, India maybe a little more, but that's what the worldwide number is. Imagine 77% of an employee in a workforce are not engaged. So, and of that, 80% are on the verge of lookout, that okay, if I am not worthy, I am not engaged, why not look out something as a change in the outside world, which is, obviously the grass is always greener outside, right? So if you look at that as a context, the biggest experience which gets built when we talk about retention of an employee, first it has on onboarding of an employee. Now today the experience of onboarding is little broken. An employee takes an offer letter, depending upon a company, 30, 60, 90, he waits for those days, and he doesn't turn up on the joining day. Gone are the days when I have got an offer letter which is like a precious paper. I will wait for those 90 days and come back and join that organization. It is gone. Now, that 90 days he starts shopping in. Now, how do we, and as an employer, you are waiting on the 91st day that this guy is coming in because he has taken an offer letter, he'll come in, and he doesn't drop. Now, there are almost 55% dropout from offer to joining date. Imagine the effort which we were talking about that, okay, there will be a CV, will be shortlisted, and all those things, journey has been completed. Now, that's where a platform like us, which comes in where we talk about engaging employee, and this is a pre-employee, when the offer has coming in, you start engaging with that. Now, how does the engagement happens? From a person who has not joined in, but he has taken an offer, so that means he has showed an interest of an organization. And that interest now need to be cultivated, nudged to take him to the next level. Now, the first and the foremost thing which anybody, when he takes an offer, is that, okay, this is an organization, culture and values. Culture and values comes on the day he joins in, maybe after HR documentation is done, right? Now, if you pre that, he will understand what is an organization is all about, what are the values, whom I am gonna go work. Now, that's where an whole augmented reality is helping today. And going forward, there will be a VR coming in, that you will have an experience of which workplace you're going in, how your chair looks like, what will be your cafeteria look like, where will be your chai point, which you will take a break and go it. Now, you are making that employee comfortable with the manager, with the surroundings, and with what work expectations with an employee, a future employee have. Now, that journey, when we nudge it, he has an attrition which was almost 55, has gone drastically down by 45%. So now on the joining day, again, the experience is built because everything is now on the technology. He is aware about a lot of things. He has done his compliances and everything, joins in an organization. Now, the journey in an organization is also a very critical part, because today when somebody joins in, you have put in a lot of effort, you have done his pre-onboarding, everything done, joins an organization. Now, if not rightly engaged, on the first 45 days, there is a chance that they will drop out. And that's the critical aspect today, and HR is trying to solve. That, okay, if I am able to hold and nudge the first 45 days, at least today, a normal parlance is that 2 years, they will work with an organization with potential. And depending upon how the movement happens. On our platform, we believe in completely that if you are interested and you are given a right work, an employee will be engaged and work in. If you're able to recognize it, an employee on the platform, and which is quick. Today, all the Gen Z, and why I am coming and quoting a generation, because when we deal with different corporations, and in the corporations, today we have baby boomers who have been there pre-65, and we have somebody post-2010. And Gen Z today comes in with a whole Insta world, right? So the time they post, with any wacky picture, there will be at least 15 likes there. Now imagine he is coming, and he and she is coming in from that world, and in fact, all of you guys sitting backside, as the students are coming in, and you will accept that there has to be liking. Now, when I get into a corporate world, that's not happening. And hence, a technology player like us, bringing that whole touch and feel with the help of technology, that, okay, you have done a great job, not to be monetary, but there is a liking coming in to that employee. And it can be from the senior folks as well. The second thing which our platform opens up is the openness to build community. Now, if you are building a community today, if you are working in a hybrid world, how do you connect? You don't have an option. You have a Teams meeting or a Google Meet or a Zoom meeting for those 30 minutes. In that 30 minutes, by the time you end up, okay, thank you, the shutter is down. Now, how will you connect? In that space, a community building with peer is a critical aspect. And we have got something called Hobby Club, where anybody who has an interest of that zone can connect, build, and work towards it. So as an HR, now you have not 100, now it is 25, 25, 25, 25, splitted, and these 25 people are interested in, say, for example, photography. So now they can connect. For example, pre-panel discussion, we were discussing with Dr. Rajesh, Dr. Sangeeta, a lot of things, how the future work is happening. So you were able to connect on workplace, a certain topic. Now that's what we are bringing in a very simple way on a text side that, okay, now on a so-and-so date, you would have seen in across India, marathon was a culture of outside India. It has inbuilt so much that Mumbai Marathon is a cult, which I am part of, I keep running every year. So you have different groups of marathoners across India, and you can connect left, right, center with these guys. Now, what has happened is, now your engagement level is no more a work engagement, where your engagements are very different from work as well. And this is what a community does help. Plus, it gives you a very different platform to give a feedback. A manager giving a feedback to a downward today, let's be real and appreciative of the fact that our kids are not taking any feedback. It's nowhere upward, downward. It is always a flat. You respect me equal. At a 5-year kid today goes and orders himself or herself in a restaurant. Now, if that platform is not created, and a leadership, and the guy who is joining in maybe a 2 years experience, we need to give that platform. And that's what our platform does on a whole mentor-mentee programs, where it's a common platform. A CEO can be called with a name, and it's a real name. That means he is a normal guy. If he does any wrong thing, a young kid who has only 1 year experience can say that, hey, you've done a wrong thing. And that's what today a young Gen Z is doing it. They are very, very transparent. That's one thing which people dislike it, by and large. They are very, very trustful. We were from trust deficit coming to a trustfulness. And that's what our platform allows to engage with these solutions. The third and the foremost important thing is recognition. How do you recognize at each pillar of the journey of an employee? Maybe it's a big thing, small thing, and how you are engaging and celebrating it. So today, recognition is not only into a cohort of, got it into a cabin room, CEO is meeting, I don't know the CEO, I had a lunch with CEO and walked off. How do you know it? Where is the celebration happening? At LinkedIn, at Insta, at other platforms like Yammer, and that's what it is opening up the celebration of any recognition today. And if any platform or any tool is doing this, you will see a high level of engagement happening, and you will see a low level of attrition happening because he is feeling the worth in an organization. So so what our mantra is, we do an engagement, we recognize, and we celebrate. That's what we do. Thank you.
Well, I think that was really very insightful. I was just listening to you, Rohit, and then I was wondering that, are you the same person who was sitting here 13, 14 years ago, alumni of this institute? Guys, there is a problem, Ruchika madam, because if you guys are creating such kind of HR guys, our job is in danger. So forget AI, NIA is creating, killing jobs for our HR guys with this kind of people getting in. Anyway, jokes apart, but if these are the kind of outputs that we go to our CFO and CEO, the HR guys, and we tell them that, employee engagement and all that kind of stuff, the first question is generally asked is, what is ROI? And the general question, the answer to this question is it's intangible. Okay, of course, intangible assets can be monitored, but it's very difficult to do that. So if I really have to use AI to have a better ROI, I think the area where your tangible ROI is, you get is talent acquisition. Because that is where I can actually save brass tacks, taka, dollar, mullah, whatever. Now, talent acquisition is basically for what? To essentially, in a smallest possible words, it's basically to recruit performing individuals who will stay with the organization. So two dependent variables, okay, performance and retention. Now, if both of them, and obviously Sangeeta is one of them, out of all of us who have done a lot of recruitment, and you've been kind of expert in that area. So, I would request you to talk about a little more in terms of use of tech, because CFOs would love this. They are concerned about bottom line. And talent acquisition is the area where you actually save a lot of money. So, can you just dwell a little more on how exactly you've gone using tech and gone about it?
Yeah, that's very much one of the bread and butter for, especially for IT industry, of course, and every industry runs so much with people and, along with people. I think wherever it's a people first industry, I think it saves a huge amount of cost when technology is actually helping us. I think engagement, recognition, and celebration, so important what Rohit talked about. That doesn't happen unless we really begin first by bringing in the right people. And we all know the age-old hiring, Rajesh, all of us in IT have seen. There was a time when I started in the industry when resumes used to be a pile of resumes on the table. For all of us as HR individuals, really screening through the resumes, looking at what are the best technologies this person brings to the table. Is it in or out? The resume screening used to be that way. And I remember carrying bundles to be doing recruitment in that fashion when I was hiring for Patni way back. And I'm talking about late 90s at that point in time. And hiring was always a pressure because Indian offshoreization was booming in Indian IT. From there, we have seen a huge amount of change, from resumes to Naukri and Monster actually taking over the online resume screening method. And each one of us has again had recruiters who are going through resumes which are easily available, LinkedIn, where you're looking at some of the passive folks, and all of that. I think the entire hiring is going through a shift, from left to right, as we can call it. Going further right and to the current times and what we are using currently and what we're doing in the industry where all of us have started using is AI ML is actually helping us predict a lot what recruiters were doing till now. So you have to go through some 100 resumes, out of that one person to get selected, for a niche position. If that job of 100 resumes, which would take typically at least 3 days for a recruiter to go through from Naukri, from different jobs sites, if it comes down to really doing it in few seconds and microseconds, we all know what we're talking about, right? We're talking about from 3 days, bringing it to few seconds and few minutes for us to be able to zero down hiring to that level. And that's what the technology is actually disrupting. And we know every area of HR is getting disrupted in this fashion. We're talking about hiring, you talk development, you talk about retention or L&D. Coming back to recruitment, what are we doing? We as an organization developed a AI ML based technology platform which helps us actually check the candidates. There has been also in the IT industry a lot of fake candidates, right? How do you really know in this virtual world when people are not physically coming in for interview? Are they really the same person who has attended the interview who is likely to join you? So we have a method where we are looking at a person's photograph, the person's video conference. When we are joining the person on the video, we record that and we are able to do a mapping of one, the personality, the cognitive skills, the person's lip sync. Is the person answering or is there somebody else answering in the background? So it's to that level, right? That much where the industry has changed and that much more people have become savvy for wanting to take the job. Earlier, when it was age old, it used to have 10 candidates who are coming in today for a drive and they're physically coming in, and out of that, 3 of them are taking out the offer and going back and are likely to join you. But where is the assurance today? So when these things have become so much more unpredictable, AI ML is actually coming in to help us to see the factualness, and which is where Sovik was talking about, right? The data security, the data privacy, and that's so much more important. And we are able to predict it through the entire AI ML method, whether this is the true candidate that we should proceed with or we should not. That's one way that we are using it extensively, and our technology experts have identified it. Similarly, in the, you can do a search now in a given area. Those who are passive candidates, how do you really go ahead and attract them? Just with their research papers, white papers that they've written, somebody who is not even interested, you can now create curiosity and tap them as your resource pool of candidates. And we are using that as well in terms of being able to look at candidates whom we never knew would be interested. Passive seekers, they will be probably more stable when it comes to, and their engagements will be higher. So organizations have started looking at more and more the candidate database source, which is the passive folks who were never looking for a job. Those are probably the ones. And within that, you can actually, with AI ML, again predict whether this person's likelihood of saying yes to you or no to you, what is that, to what level is it? So if actually machine and technology can give us that much of a prediction, I'm sure all of our lives are going to change, the workplaces are changing, and we all need to be changing with that. And I'm sure the student community here knows much more of this entire space, and curious to know what is on their mind as well later, Rajesh, in our conversation as to what those questions are, what are keeping them busy.
So thanks. I think, Sangeeta, one point that I'd like to reiterate, just to kind of re-emphasize, passive seekers is one of the most important thing. Active seekers, hypothetically, are seeking jobs for several reasons. They might be looking for location change. Most of the times they're laid off, compensation increase, and so on and so forth. Passive seekers possibly, and I said that there are two variables, right? Retention and performance. So passive seekers, my experience has been, are probably better performing people than, right? And you have a point over there.
Exactly.
But what all of us have so far been speaking is about here and now. So what I'll do is I'll kind of speed up the timeline a little more and get into the future and create a scenario for you. So guys, a few weeks from now, I guess many of you are going to be facing campus placements, right? So just imagine Policy Bazaar or maybe a Kotak, Live comes, and comes in the sense what? Metaverse. So what you guys do is, you guys sitting here get into the metaverse, and you are actually in a virtual office of Policy Bazaar in Delhi, okay, with maybe your preferred avatars or your real avatars. You sit in actually a Policy or Bazaar's office in Delhi, or maybe Kotak's office in Mumbai, and then those guys come and they conduct group discussions, and you are actually doing that in an official setup of that respective company, okay, and you are answering. Your interviews are happening in, again, that kind of metaverse as well. In fact, another thing is training, okay? So Susan has been talking about training, upskilling, and maybe future belongs to, you get into the metaverse and you get trained for behavioral skills as well. There are POCs which have been created to that effect as well. And that future, I don't know how far it is, but definitely not too far as of now. Out of all of us, one man who is kind of in the forefront of technology since he's working for IBM is, of course, Souvik. And I think none other than Souvik can answer this question, that exactly a year ago, there are a lot of talk about metaverse. Just before GenAI came in, we all were talking about immersive realities, Rohit also alluded towards AR and VR, okay? So where are we? So this is purely futuristic questions, Souvik. So far, we spoke about what we are doing, but how about metaverse? All of us are very intrigued about it, and there's a lot of mystery around the entire metaverse. So is it round the corner? Where are we heading? Are we getting there soon? What's your take on this? Because I think you're the best person to answer this question.
Yeah, so good question. Now, see, from a question standpoint, I think you articulated it very well. Where is it headed versus when are we going to get it? That's really been the mood on this topic, right? So if I look at the years 2020 through, beginning of 2021, digital transformation took over every kinds of work, right? So even in IT, which is mostly at the back of digital, the transformation was noticeable, right? It was immense. And think of any job. Think of your, studies. Everything was digitally getting transformed. Now, the acceleration towards immersive technologies, towards extreme reality, and then towards metaverse started around that time. That's where the entire acceleration started. Now, there are, if I look at extreme reality, which is a term that encompasses AR, VR, MR, everything, the training, education, security, planning, interviewing, all of this has been tried. The results are great. So, I was reading somewhere that the accuracy of extracting biopsy samples from your liver is 30 to 50% more when someone's trained using a immersive technology approach, right? So there are absolutely brilliant uses. Students who were trained with AR, VR technology were actually 30% more receptive to the content than when done through books, which was at 10%, and lectures, which were at 5%. So, but, there are a couple of problems, that I think we still need to navigate. So number one is the realism aspect of the technology. Is that, see, when you enter into a metaverse, when you enter a AR, VR technology, this is different. This is not the real world, and that feeling. I get that feeling, right? I'm sure all of us get that feeling. So there is some bridge that needs to happen from a technology standpoint. And then there is another aspect that is also in the works, which is the touch technology, right? Now, with the haptic technology and trying to blur the lines between reality and the immersive world, there is some way to go, is how I see it in the market. The other aspect is also, I know we talked about Gen Z, we talked about remote working, but we also interspersed it with hybrid working. Now I want to make a few things very clear. From my standpoint, the demographic dividend that India has, and I'm bringing in the India perspective more than the global perspective in this, right? See, we will be realizing our demographic dividend only when we are able to train the next generation right, okay? So yes, while schools, colleges, etc. are a great place, the first 3 years, the first 5 years of a job, however many jobs people change these days, are absolutely formative. And what I believe in is hybrid. It is not remote. You have to have that people touch once in 2 days, once in 3 days, to really chart and course your action. And see, if you look at the industry, they are talking about hybrid after we have come out of COVID more than they talk about remote in that sense. And from my analysis of things, this is why it is. We have to realize the potential that we have in this country, and that's the best way of doing it. But as we move towards a $5 trillion economy, right, as we start getting mature in every job around us, we will have to apply these immersive technologies, metaverse, everything, because talent will become more and more scarce. And that's when the ideal confluence of the technological advancement and the necessity of the industry will come together. So if you want me to predict, Dr. Save, my thing is, maybe it's about 3 years. That's how I see it with what I see today.
Well, I think I just want to kind of tell you something happened with me. So I have some POCs on metaverse, and I was so excited last year. And I came home and gave this huge sermon to my wife, and she unwillingly, but obviously husband is kind of forcing you to listen to something. So she heard me for about half an hour, and after that said, "Chalo, yaar, khana khate." She said, get into your metaverse and have your food now. I don't have time because half an hour you eat of my time. So the food, I'm not prepared. Metaverse will feed you. Anyway, jokes apart. But yes, I think we've had a pretty rich discussion today, from things of the past to things of the present to things of the future, which Souvik alluded towards. I think we can end this discussion on 3 important points, and the first is very important, which Souvik spoke about, which is ethics. Ethics and principles in AI is extremely important, otherwise it will go whichever way, and then it will be uncontrollable. So that's, I think, was very important. And for the other 2 points, I have a quote. Okay, one quote is from a very famous, celebrated general, and this quote is very old. It's about, I think, 45 during the Second World War time. General Patton said the war, and please listen to me carefully, this quote is very, very comprehensive. The war is fought with weapons but won by men. So we may have all these weapons, but eventually the person who is using it is going to be winning that war. So I think what is more important from Susan's perspective, that upskilling and reskilling is very important, because all these weapons will keep on developing. If you don't have able people to handle, it will go nowhere, right? And the third quote and the third lesson that I would like to kind of talk about today is by the chairman of World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab. And I have a corollary over there. I mean, he says that it has to be done here and now. But the corollary, again, going back to Charles Darwin, I spoke about Newton's law of conservation of energy. Here's Charles Darwin's famous statement that survival of the fittest, right? So from Schwab's perspective, I'll just correct it and say survival of the fastest. Okay? Schwab spoke about it is not the big thing which is going to win. It is the fast thing which is going to win. Okay, so you have to be as agile as possible. And you can see, you probably would have seen the last few years, right? These small disruptors have come from, startups and not from big fishes, right? So it's the fast fish which is going to eat the big fish and not the other way around. And that's what Schwab said. So on that count, thank you so much, all the fellow panelists. It was really intriguing for me, as I'm sure the same thing is true with the rest of the guys. So it's open for any questions from any one of you, all students, whoever. I mean, we'll try and attempt, it's not that we know each and everything of everything for sure, but certainly we would be glad to take any questions. Sangeeta, you're really hopeful, right? You've a lot of... So please don't disappoint her. I mean, any one of us for that matter. You can ask about insurance as well. We have one insurance person in HR guy in disguise, insurance agent in HR disguise, right? Rohit, I'm sorry I'm taking on you because you have taken job of my one of the very efficient HR guy.
I'm sure there are superstars sitting here.
I know, I'm worried.
Who are a little quiet right now.
Ruchika, this is encroachment, Rohit and all that kind of stuff.
So I think you all are using technology. Looks like no questions actually speaks for all of you. Know generative AI thoroughly by now. And you're using it extensively. Is that right? How many of you are using Gen AI already?
Oh, every one of them. Possibly we may have told them a bit. But they are awake, I can see that. Yeah, so thank you so much for the patient. We hope that we have added value to your knowledge to whatever little extent. So thank you so much for this. And again, thanks NIA for inviting us. And it was really a great opportunity. I think I'm voicing everyone's sentiment here. So again, great. And look forward to visit NIA every year. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thank you all the experts for your valuable insights, and also thank you for engaging such a wonderful discussion. Now I will request my colleagues to come and offer a small token of gratitude to the experts.
Thank you so much, everyone.